The first alarm struck like a blade of sound, sharp, metallic, and wrong. Elara Kepler lifted her head from the holodesk. The Galactic Exchange Academy classroom had been silent a heartbeat earlier. Now, heavy red light strobed against the curved walls, turning every face bone white. Then crimson! Lockdown protocol initiated. The intercom's voice was cold and inflectionless. Alien students, scaled, feathered, translucent, looked around nervously. They were used to drills, but this felt heavier, predatory. A soft vibration passed under Elara's palms through the desk. Planet rotation stabilizers adjusting. Something large had docked against the Academy hull. Their instructor, an elderly Xyrillian with translucent skin, blinked, throat pulsing rapidly. "No sudden movements," he croaked. "Remain seated." Elara didn't move. She kept her breathing steady. The others whispered frantically, "Is it pirates?" "No, planetary inspectors. They're here for a Deathworlder." "I heard rumors." Every pair of eyes shifted toward her. Elara ignored them and slowly closed her notebook. Her fingers worked with careful precision. No trembling, no panic. On Earth, panic never helped. The classroom doors detonated inward, metal flying like shrapnel. A squad poured through the breach. Not Academy security, not peacekeepers. These were tribunal enforcers. Their armor was matte black, lined with blue energy veins. Weapons pointed directly at her. The lead enforcer adjusted his rifle as if leveling at a dangerous animal. "Subject designation Elara Kepler. Stand and place your hands behind your head." The room erupted into chaos. Students scrambled toward corners, some shielding themselves with wings or appendages. Desks collapsed as people shoved for distance. Elara rose, slow, controlled. Her voice was quiet. "Why am I being detained?" The squad leader stepped close, visor reflecting her face. "By authority of the Orion Tribunal, you are under arrest for interspecies threat classification review." A fancy way of saying, "We're afraid of what you are." Elara scanned the rifles. Plasma compression muzzles, anti-kinetic field emitters, weapons meant for armored beasts. Overkill. She didn't resist. Her movement was steady and fluid as she clasped her hands behind her head. The squad rushed her. They weren't taking chances. 8 enforcers, shock cuffs ready, chains made of a metal Elara didn't recognize. The moment their gauntlets touched her wrists, she felt the temperature drop. The metal was unnaturally cold, like frost and electricity fused. A sting shot up her arm, self-tightening, reactive, learning her pulse. Interesting. The cuffs sealed, and the chains wound around her arms and torso like a living serpent. They locked with a final metallic click that echoed through the classroom. Her classmates stared in horror. One whispered, "Why isn't she fighting?" The squad leader shoved her forward. "Move!" Elara walked. Not because she was weak, because she was calculating. The transport. The Academy corridors blurred under red emergency strobes. Enforcers marched at her flanks. Their boots struck the floors in perfect rhythmic precision. Elara counted the cadence unconsciously. Left, right, left. The vibrations in the metal shifted again, this time stronger. A void ship had docked. Tribunal mark. Heavy class. Designed to transport the worst criminals the galaxy feared. Her. Chains tightened with every step. Reading her heart rate, adjusting tension. She kept her pulse slow and steady. One enforcer kept glancing at her wrists, nervous. "That alloy restrains volcanic beasts on Sorna Prime," he muttered. "If it starts tightening, don't resist." Another hissed out a laugh. "She's just a human." Overhyped Deathworld myth. Elara looked at him. Calm. Expression unreadable. He looked away. Processing bay. The airlock hissed open, revealing the tribunal ship interior, sharp and industrial. Walls lined with shock panels. Gravity tuned heavier, forcing her body downward. The commander stood waiting. Commander Zirvos Threx. Tall. 4 arms. Crimson eyes like polished obsidian. Not military, bureaucratic cruelty radiated from him. His uniform bore the insignia of a warden, a stylized chain wrapped around a star. He smiled without warmth. So, the Deathworld girl. His voice was luxurious, slow. "Your file is fascinating." Elara didn't respond. Threx circled her, observing the bindings. "These are forged from Kryllian anti-nanite alloy. They do not break. They adapt. The more you resist, the tighter they become." He lowered his face until his eyes were level with hers. Humans are unpredictable, violent, untamed. The tribunal will learn what gives your species such resilience. Elara held his gaze, unfazed. "What gives us resilience isn't something you can dissect." Threx's expression sharpened, not with anger but curiosity. "Resilience. You speak like a soldier. I speak like someone who knows what pain is." Something flickered in his eyes. He gestured, and the enforcers pushed her toward the interrogation wing, the chamber. The door sealed with a whisper of soundproofing foam. The chamber was circular, walls lined with monitors and observation windows shielded by one-way shielding. Gravity increased again. Her knees dipped before she adjusted. A single reinforced chair sat in the center. The chains reacted immediately, snaking from her wrists to the chair, locking her against the metal surface. Pressure tightened across her chest, just enough to restrict movement but not enough to injure. Threx stepped into her line of sight. The light above him cast shadows across his scaled features. "You will remain here until the tribunal decides your fate." Elara breathed in through her nose. Slow inhale, slow exhale. He watched the monitors. Heart rate, blood pressure, neural activity. "You are remarkably calm," he observed. "Getting emotional gives you what you want." "And what do you think I want?" "To prove that we break." Her voice never trembled. He leaned in. "And do you?" Elara looked at him the way a storm looks at a ship, quiet, but with power beneath the surface. "No." Threx's eyes narrowed. "We'll see." He turned away, signaling the exit. The chains pulsed, tightening with mechanical judgment. Elara tested a breath. They constricted. She stopped, moving. Interesting. They weren't designed just to restrain. They were designed to respond. The door closed behind. Threx, silence, only her pulse, steady and slow, filled the room. Elara lowered her head and exhaled a single controlled breath, emptying her chest of tension. The chains reacted, not by tightening, but by vibrating softly. A low metallic groan filled the chamber. She focused on stillness. The vibration intensified. The metal fibers trembled like prey sensing a predator. Not her force. Hers was stillness. Something in the chain recognized it. A faint crack echoed. Elara didn't move. Another crack. The lights in the chamber shimmered. Flickering once, she whispered, not to the chains, but to herself. "I don't start fights." The metal trembled. Violently, a fracture line spread across the cuff at her right. "Wrist. I finished them. The strongest." Alloy in the galaxy whimpered. And then, snap. The cuff shattered. The shockwave knocked out half the lights. Elara lifted her eyes to the observation window. Somewhere behind the glass, Threx watched and finally learned something all aliens eventually did. On a death world, even metal knows fear. The lights flickered as dust sifted from the ceiling. A thin fracture of black ran across the metal cuff still hanging from Elara's wrist. Sparks danced along exposed wiring overhead, casting the chamber in a strobe of red and shadow. The observation glass on the far wall darkened completely. Someone shut off visual feed. Someone was afraid. Elara flexed her wrist, not to test strength, but to feel how the metal responded with micro-vibrations. The core was still reacting to her pulse. The chains were not just restraints, they were sensors. She let her breathing slow, steady, measured. The links across her torso loosened a fraction. She felt it, a tiny release, nearly imperceptible. So they tightened in response to force, but they loosened to stillness. She could use that. The door hissed open with sharp authority. Commander Zirvos Threx entered, posture tight, Two armed guards flanked him, rifles trained on her head. One carried a containment staff pulsing with white. Voltage. Elara didn't move. The fractured cuff lay on the floor. Threx's gaze locked onto it. That alloy restrains the most volatile predators in the outer rim, he said slowly. How did you break it? Elara lifted her eyes, calm, direct. I didn't break anything. You're lying. No. Her voice was low, steady. It broke itself. The closest guard shifted uneasily. The commander lifted a hand, silencing him. Threx approached the broken cuff cautiously, scanning it with a biotech visor. Readouts scrolled across the lens. Internal stress fracture, he murmured. But not from force. He snapped his gaze to her. What did you do? Elara exhaled. Slow, controlled. It reacted to what I am. The guard to her right tightened his grip on the containment staff. Sir, this is a containment breach. I recommend... The staff hummed, pointed directly at her. Elara remained still. Threx straightened, regaining confidence in his own authority. Let's see what else you can do. Tighten restraints. The remaining metal coils shot up her arms and around her chest, crushing her back into the chair. The chains constricted with brutal efficiency, squeezing ribs, pressure rising dangerously. Pain bloomed through her lungs. Elara inhaled once through clenched teeth. Then she closed her eyes. Her heartbeat slowed. The chains began to tremble. Memory, not a flashback. Memory. As sensation. Her mother's hands, calloused from work, guiding Elara's smaller ones around a cracked climbing rope on a rusted metal training frame. You don't conquer the world by force, her mother whispered. You make the world bend on its own. Back then, Elara had laughed. Now she finally understood. Back to the chamber, Elara released her breath in a slow stream. The chains loosened by the width of a fingernail. She felt it, not random, not coincidence. It was reading her. The metal wasn't reacting to her strength. It was reacting to her lack of fear. Threx leaned forward, eager for answers. How are you doing that? Elara opened her eyes. Why are you trying so hard to prove humans break? Threx's upper lip curled, revealing a ridge of needle teeth. Your species is a paradox. Physically inferior to most sentients, yet you defy extinction constantly. We want to know why. You're afraid to be second place, Elara said quietly. The guard with the staff lunged. Elara didn't resist. The first strike sent voltage through every nerve. Pain blanked her vision, but she held her breath steady, controlling her body's response. Her pulse never spiked. The chains loosened again. Threx's voice sharpened. Enough, stand down. The guard hesitated. But she... Stand down. The man withdrew reluctantly. Elara, still seated, lifted her eyes to the commander. You think fear controls us? She said softly. But for humans, it focuses us. She let her body relax completely. Her heart slowed. The metal convulsed. Scree! Crack! The coils around her torso snapped apart like dry twigs. The sound wasn't explosive. It was desperate. Like something trying to escape her, shards of metal skittered across the floor. Both guards staggered back, rifles shaking in their hands. One whispered, voice cracking. The chains reacted to her. They registered. Fear. Elara rose to her feet. No dramatic flex. No violent motion, just stood. The remaining fragment of the chain unraveled and dropped to the floor with a pitiful clatter. Threx stared at her, disbelief warring with fascination. Impossible. Elara met his gaze with absolute composure. You built chains that tighten when someone fights them. But you never considered someone who doesn't. She took a single step toward him. The guards panicked, rifles rising. Elara didn't flinch. Her voice remained calm. You think strength is domination. Humans learned strength as survival. Threx swallowed hard. Stay back. Why? She asked. I'm unarmed. You're armed. You have soldiers. Power. Authority. Her words were razor sharp. And yet you're the one afraid. One of the guards snapped. Open fire! Threx held up a hand, stopping him. No, we don't fire in a sealed chamber. She'd survive, we wouldn't. It slipped out, a truth he didn't mean to reveal. Elara tilted her head. Even now you expect violence. She stepped toward the door. Threx scrambled to block her path. Where do you think you're going? Out! You can't. Elara looked past him. Watch me. She pressed her palm to the door panel. The bioscanner chirped. Access granted. The guards shouted in shock. How? What? Her biology shouldn't... Elara didn't turn. You scanned me on arrival, she said. Your systems assumed I was staff because you input cadet files into your clearance library. A design flaw. Overconfidence built into code. The door slid open. Red lights washed the corridor beyond. The ship on full alert. Elara walked through, leaving the broken chains behind. Threx lunged after her, voice desperate. You can't escape a tribunal fortress. Elara didn't look back. I don't escape, she said. I leave. Sirens erupted. Lockdown warnings pulsed through speakers. Containment breach. Human specimen unrestrained. Elara moved through the corridor with silent confidence, analyzing everything with practiced efficiency. Vent pathways, camera arcs, turret placements. A guard rounded. A corner too fast. He froze. She didn't attack him. She simply stepped forward with unwavering calm. His rifle slipped from his fingers as he backed away. Don't hurt me. I won't. She passed him. She didn't need violence. Humans weren't feared because they fought hardest. Humans were feared because nothing broke them. Back in the chamber, Threx slammed his fist against a console. Activate secondary locks. Seal the level! A monitor flickered as the chain's internal readings displayed subject emotional state, calm material, reaction, overload. Threx stared at the numbers. Throat tightening, she isn't resisting the restraints. The scientist beside him whispered, horrified. The restraints are resisting her. As Elara reached the lift that would take her to the docking bay, she paused, gaze steady on the sliver of stars visible through a tiny maintenance viewport. Earth, her goal. She pressed the lift control. She whispered to herself. To the universe, to the frightened chains she left shattered behind her. I don't start fights. The lift began its ascent, but I finished them. The lift hummed as it rose, smooth and silent. Elara stood motionless in the center, wrists bare where the chains once gripped her. She could still feel their phantom weight, not as pain, only as memory. Above her, a soft chime announced the lift nearing the upper deck. Tribunal docking bay. Authorized personnel only a warning to most. To her, a challenge. The doors opened. The corridor of glass blue emergency lights pulsed along the hallway. Elara stepped out, her shoes soundless against the floor's polished metal. The glass walls offered a full view outside, where the Orion Tribunal fortress orbited its dead star. The star glowed faintly, once bright, now a hollow ember. At the corridor's end, the docking bay shimmered with force field containment. Beyond it, ships floated like metallic insects ready to scatter. Elara walked with purpose. Not hurried, not frantic. Purpose never rushed. Her mind mapped paths without conscious effort. Her observational training from Earth wasn't military. It was human instinct refined as discipline. A shadow moved ahead. A guard stepped into view, weapon raised. He was trembling. Elara Kepler, he said, trying to sound authoritative. This sector is restricted. She didn't slow. You don't need to point that at me. He steadied the rifle with both hands. I am authorized to use force to detain you. I'm not a threat, she said. You shattered containment restraints, he said, voice tight. We saw the footage. They self-destructed rather than hold you. Elara stopped an arm's length from his weapon. Her voice flowed soft, controlled. If I wanted to hurt you, she said, you would already know. Something in her tone, not threat, but certainty, made him drop the rifle to low ready. He swallowed. Why are you doing this? I just want to go home, he hesitated, then stepped aside. No fight needed. Fear didn't need force. Truth didn't need volume. Elara walked past him. Observation deck. Commander Threx watched the security feed from the deck above, jaw tight, claws tapping against the console. He had already ordered a level 4 lockdown. Every bulkhead door shut, every blast shield engaged, yet the girl walked through them. The chain fragment on the table before him vibrated as if alive. Threx stared, unsettled by the memory of it breaking itself. He slammed his fist down. "She can't be allowed to board a ship!" The scientist behind him, white-plated and shaking, spoke cautiously. "Sir, if she returns to her species with knowledge of our procedures," Threx spun. "She'll expose us. Humanity will know we fear them." He leaned closer. "And a Deathworld species never forgives fear." He hit the intercom. "All units, intercept the human at docking bay 12. Lethal force authorized." His finger hovered over one last switch, a luminous red panel labeled Purge the Purge Control, a failsafe to vent the bay into space. Threx stared at the button. Conflicted. "I will not lose to a primitive." He pressed it. The docking bay Elara entered dock bay 12. The key. Massive airlock door sealed behind her. The moment she crossed the threshold, red lights flashed. A sterile voice echoed, "Purge sequence initiated. Stand clear." A hiss erupted from vents embedded in the walls. Air pressure began to drop. Elara looked up at the ceiling. Cameras swiveled to track her. She spoke, not loudly but directly to the eyes behind the glass. "So this is your answer." Her hair whipped around her face as wind roared toward the evacuation vents. The temperature fell. A warning klaxon screamed. Decompression in 10 seconds. She moved toward the central control column. Pressure tugged against her body as the wind accelerated. She braced her stance, leaning into the force. 9 seconds, Elara reached the column. Her hand skimmed the hollow interface. It rejected access. 8, 7, 6. She closed her eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Her pulse steadied. The panel flickered. Access granted. Human biometric override accepted because. The tribunal never considered the possibility that a human would approach calm while dying. The purge halted. Pressure stabilized. The alarms cut off so abruptly, the silence felt deeper than the void. The blast doors leading into the hangar slid open. Elara stepped into the bay. Confrontation Commander. Threx stood at the entrance ramp of a shuttle flanked by 2 guards. He held a plasma pistol leveled at her. "You cannot be allowed to leave," he said. Elara walked closer. "Then shoot." He blinked, hesitation flickering in his eyes. Elara's voice carried no anger, only honesty. "You say you fear what we are, but everything you've done proves you fear what we aren't." "What does that mean?" he snapped. "You expected rage," she said. "Violence, instinct, but I didn't fight you." She stopped 10 feet away. "You fought yourself." His jaw clenched. "Humans always escalate." "No," she corrected. "Humans adapt." Threx's hand trembled around the pistol. Elara glanced briefly at the guards. They were scared. Not of her strength, of her composure. She stepped forward. The guards backed away without a word. Elara focused on Threx. "When you saw those chains break, you didn't see power." He swallowed. "I saw danger. You saw freedom," she said. Threx fired. Elara tilted her head. The shot skimmed past her ear, blistering heat but missing. She didn't flinch, didn't react, one step. Then another. Threx fired again. The shot hit the floor beside her. He backed up the ramp in retreat. "Stay away from me." Elara reached the foot of the ramp. "You built chains that measure resistance," she said. "But humans don't resist the world." She took the final step. "We outgrow it." Threx squeezed the trigger once more. Click. Empty. He dropped the weapon. His hands shook. "Breathing unsteady?" "You're not supposed to win," he whispered. "We're supposed to control you." Elara stepped past him, entering the shuttle cockpit. She didn't look back. "You don't control what you fear." Departure. She activated the engines. The shuttle lifted, hovering over the deck. Threx stood in the hangar doorway, staring up, small, powerless. Elara tapped the comm and spoke directly to the tribunal ship broadcast system. "Humanity does not seek war." She paused. "But if you bring one to us..." Her final words were ice. "Remember your chains broke first?" The shuttle shot into space, engines flaring bright. The tribunal fortress shrank behind her. Swallowed by the dark around the dead star, Elara set her course toward the blue speck of Earth, home, and let her body finally rest back against the pilot seat. Not as a prisoner, not as a cadet, but as a Deathworld girl the galaxy would never underestimate again. The shuttle cut through the void like a silent blade, engines whispering instead of roaring. Stars streaked past the cockpit window, distant and cold. Elara sat strapped into the pilot seat, her posture relaxed but alert, too trained to fully let her guard down. She wasn't heading directly to Earth. Not yet. Earth was protected by a detection barrier. Any unauthorized ship approaching triggered a defense swarm. Instead, she aimed for an orbital transfer point, the heliopause beacon, a floating checkpoint where returning cadets were scanned and cleared. Every cadet used it at least once. No one arrived in a stolen tribunal craft. Her shuttle crossed the beacon's sensor range, and a screen lit up with red warnings. Unidentified vessel approaching, transmit credentials or be fired upon. Elara tapped a command. Her Earth identification flashed across the channel. Name, Elara Kepler. Status, cadet return. Scheduled entry. The next line blinked. Flagged, deceased, reported. Elara froze. They declared her dead. The tribunal wanted no trace of what they attempted. Another line appeared. Status, investigation required. Hold position, a holographic voice followed a moment later. Unidentified shuttle, remain stationary until inspection team arrives. Elara whispered to herself, I don't have time for this. Alarms began rising from the beacon station. Patrol ships angled toward her like teeth. The transmission ACOM signal pinged. Encrypted. Only one person would use that personal encryption key. Elara accepted it. The screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Admiral Cale Mercer, Earth Fleet's youngest admiral, silver around the temples, eyes sharp and clear. He was the man who sponsored her enrollment in the first Interspecies Academy exchange program. He didn't look relieved to see her. He looked furious. Elara? What the hell happened? Elara spoke evenly. They declared me a threat. I was abducted. They attempted containment. I escaped. That's not a description, he snapped. That's a headline. They chained me, she said. The chains broke themselves to get away. Mercer blinked once, twice. The anger vanished, replaced by something harder. Calculation. You're serious? I wish I weren't. He steepled his fingers. The tribunal sent a dispatch. They claimed you attacked them. That you went feral. Elara held his gaze. Is that what they believe? No, his jaw tightened. That's what they want others to believe. But I know you. You control yourself better than most soldiers 3 times your age. I didn't go feral, she said. I walked away. Mercer leaned closer to the screen. You're holding proof. You have their ship, their data. Enough to expose them. Mercer inhaled, slow and steady. Then we do this strategically. He keyed a command. Tribunal ship data. Transfer. Initiated. Elara. Watched files stream into Earth Fleet's secure database. Video footage of her capture. Audio logs of Threx's orders. Scientific records showing they intended to dissect her for Deathworld resilience analysis. Evidence of a crime. Mercer monitored the transfer. When this hits the council, the tribunal will deny everything. Elara leaned back. They won't be able to. Mercer studied her face, his voice lowering. You look changed, she considered her answer. When chains break rather than hold you, she said softly. You learned something about what others fear. He nodded once. Return to Earth, you'll be escorted. Admiral, she said. I don't want to spark a war. You didn't, he replied. They did. Tribunal emergency meeting, meanwhile, far from the beacon. At the Orion Tribunal Fortress, panic rippled. Commander Threx stood before a circle of holographic counselors. Each species looked more irritated than concerned. You lost one human cadet? One demanded. Threx fought to keep control of the room. She was stronger than predicted. The chains are not biological life, another interrupted. They do not feel fear. Threx opened his mouth. A technician rushed into the chamber, pale and shaking. Council... A data leak. A feed appeared, playing footage of Elara being chained, interrogated, and nearly purged. Her voice echoed in the chamber. "You don't control what you fear." The council chamber erupted. Threx suddenly understood the new balance of power. All their posturing, all their dominance, destroyed by a girl who never raised a hand. Back to Elara Mercer's voice cut through the static. "We're sending ships to escort you. Keep your distance until—" A proximity alarm shrieked. 3 tribunal hunters dropped from FTL, ripping into real space like tearing fabric. Their targeting locks painted Elara's shuttle in pulsing red. Elara didn't hesitate. She angled the shuttle away from the beacon, diving toward a debris field. Mercer's shouting filled the comm. "Elara, don't engage. You're unarmed!" "I don't need weapons," she answered. She threaded the shuttle through fractured metal plates, skimming dangerously close. Tribunal hunters followed. Too hesitant to match her precision, she zipped between 2 rotating hull fragments. One hunter clipped the debris, spiraling into a collision. Elara exhaled slowly. One down. She dropped into a sharp gravitational slingshot around a derelict engine core. The remaining hunters overshot, their locking systems struggling to track her unpredictable trajectory. She touched the comm. "Admiral, exit corridor clear. Releasing escort." 4 Earth destroyers manifested around her, forming a protective diamond formation. Mercer appeared again on the holo. "You're safe, for now," he gave a thin smile. "The galaxy just learned what we've always known." She didn't ask. He said it anyway. Humans don't break. Earth atmosphere re-entry heat flared across the shuttle's hull, painting it in blazing orange. Elara watched ocean and land masses emerge beneath the clouds. Familiar, fierce, home. The shuttle hit atmosphere turbulence and shook hard. Adrenaline spiked, not fear. This was Earth saying, "Wake up." Minutes later, the shuttle touched down on a coastal landing pad. The hatch hissed open. The air struck her first, salt and wind, raw and real. Mercer waited at the base of the ramp, coat flapping in the breeze. As she descended, the man who rarely showed emotion placed a hand over his heart. "Welcome home, cadet." Elara looked at the horizon. Waves crashed against cliffs, violent, beautiful. "Nice to be on a planet where the weather wants to kill me," she said lightly. Mercer chuckled. "Deathworld comforts?" She nodded. "Always." He gestured for her to walk with him along the landing strip. "What happens now?" she asked. Mercer's expression hardened, not with anger, but resolve. "Now," he said, "we remind the galaxy of a fact they keep forgetting." She stopped and faced him. Mercer held her gaze. "Humans don't start wars, but we finish them?" Elara felt the truth of it settle inside. Her. The tribunal feared chains losing their purpose, but chains don't define humans. Freedom does, and she would never be chained again.